Hi, thanks for joining us. We wanted to take a few minutes to talk about tech and well-being. I'm Miss D, and this is
Mike Nanato, and together we are the elementary school technology coaches. Today we're going to start things off, and then we're going to hand things off to our counselors because they're going to talk to you about how to keep those lines of communication open, especially when talking about technology. But first, here's a little bit of an inclusion activity. There's been lots of talk about our students getting a lot of screen time, but how much screen time are you getting?
It's 2021, and it seems like everyone has a cell phone in their hands. We resemble the walking dead, ignoring the living, traversing the halls inattentively, distracted like moths by the bright flashing lights of our phone displays. It's easy to tell others that they're getting too much screen time. But do you know exactly how much screen time you're getting?
If you have an Android device, sit tight because I'll tell you how to measure your screen time later. But if you have an iPhone or an iPad and want to know how much screen time you're using, go to your settings and you'll find the Screen Time app. When you open up Screen Time, you'll see just how much time your iPhone or iPad has had its screen on average, over the last week. If you want to go into more detail, you can click on See All Activity, and you'll see how much time you spent on your device that day, and how much time you've been on certain apps. Do you think you use Facebook too much? You probably do, because it's Facebook. But you can set a limit by setting an app limit. You can set this by category or just specify your limit to a single app. I think I'll set my limit on Facebook to about 9 minutes a day here. If you have an Android device, you can find an app called Digital Wellbeing and Parental Controls within your settings. So I'm going to click Settings here. And I'm going to scroll down until I find Digital Wellbeing and Parental Controls. If this is the first time you're using this, you might have to give permission to your phone to use this app. When you click into it, you'll see how much time you've been on your device already that day, and a breakdown by app of how long you've been on those particular apps. Looks like I've been on YouTube for quite a bit today, so maybe I want to set a limit. If you click inside the circle, you can see I have set here a 15-minute limit. Let's increase that to about 20 minutes. I can click on the timer, move that to 20 minutes, and then click OK. Now I'll only be able to watch YouTube videos on my phone for 20 minutes. A really nice feature that Android phones have is that in Digital Wellbeing and Parental Controls, you can see just how many times you've unlocked your phone. Here it says, I've unlocked my phone 12 times, and it's just past noon. What does that say? Screen time is a great way to measure your device use, or even your children's. It's worth having a discussion with them to set limit agreements. So have that talk with your children.
So knowing that learning is social, think about all the things we have to do to kind of scaffold what we're learning when we're trying to teach our children. Here's a classic example. I know that when I turned 16, pretty much immediately, I went down to the Canadian version of the DMV and I got my first license, my first driver's license, but I wasn't able to drive all alone by myself. I had to have another adult in the car with me at all times. After that, after about 8 to 12 months, I was able to take a driving test, and from that driving test, that was great, but still, I couldn't drive unless I followed a set of other precautions, like I couldn't drive at nighttime. If I was going to be driving on the highway, I might need to have an adult in my car, and then I took another driving test. After that, then finally I had my full license, but it was very incremental, and it's probably done with a purpose, because these cars, these automobiles, they're very, very powerful tools. These computers that we're putting into our children's hands, and it could be your phone, it could be an iPad that you might give them, they are very, very powerful tools. And we want to make sure that these children learn how to use these tools properly. And that's part of our goal as technology coaches here at ASW.
So, learning is social, and we wanted to share with you some of the learning parameters and settings that we have here at ASW with our Google for Education. So with Google for Education, students have access to the full G Suite. And one of the most powerful tools that we use is Chrome. And within Chrome, the safe search is always enabled. So whenever they're looking to do their research, we have the safety search of those results that will come up. Also, one of the parameters that we put on is students under grade 5 and younger can only email within the ASW domain. So they can't email anybody outside, and nobody from the outside could email in. We have also taken off the incognito search window. So students wouldn't be able to search without their history being recorded. And we also have, YouTube is an amazing tool. It really is great for learning. However, there's a lot of content out there. So we do have a restricted YouTube mode enabled. And we also have, finally the last one is Chrome is the only browser that is available to students to use on their computer because it keeps them within the safety of our domain.
Now, privacy. It is almost the summer holidays, or it might now actually be close to the winter break or spring break or ski break or whatever it is. But privacy is one of our deepest concerns here at the school. We always ask our children, never give the location of where they are at any given place in time. There are a lot of games out there, and a lot of games that these children are playing depend on chatting with complete strangers. And every so often you might get a case where someone's asking one of your children where they are right now. It's really important that they do not engage in these conversations, because they might actually say where they are. They might say they're at home, or even worse, they might say they're on vacation, leaving everything at home unprotected. So privacy, let's encourage our children not to give our location, but also other sensitive information, just like their first names, how many brothers and sisters they have, what school they go to. Anything that they can hide is actually better.
So another thing that we talk about is all of these social media platforms that are coming out, and we want to have conversations so that students feel supported and are able to use a variety of social media, even ones that haven't even been created. So we do talk about thinking about how you set up your username, what kind of picture that you use, just like Mr. Nonato was talking about privacy. But then we also have to have the conversations about how we interact with other people online. And sometimes when we need to take those conversations offline and bring them into in-person, or when we need to end those conversations and go to a trusted adult because we're feeling uncomfortable because of the communication that's happening.
Now, at school, we created this document called the RUP in Action, or the Responsible Use Policy in Action. And it kind of just outlines things that we do at the school and what we ask our children to do just to make sure that they are safe. Some of these things are, please keep your screens facing towards an area where a teacher is able to walk by so that they can see what's on the screens at all time. That's pretty important, just to make sure that they're on task, and just in case there's something, that they shouldn't have on their screens pop up, the teacher will be able to see there and see and provide assistance as quickly as possible. Another thing is, we encourage the children to not just use Google anytime they want to search anything. While we have all these protective measures up, you know what, sometimes the sneaky things do get through Google's filters. So the best thing to do is actually use search places, use the LibGuide, use places that we know and have vetted, which we think are safe, and provide good information at their level of understanding. So our librarian, Ms. Miriam James, she's done a great job of finding really good sources that our children can trust. Another thing we ask the students to do is if they're looking for images, also use something like ImageQuest. And ImageQuest is something that we have actually paid for. It's a service. And what this service does is, number one, it filters obscene content. And number two, it gives us images that we're allowed to use in our work. So as long as we cite them, we give credit to the artists that have created those images.
And how you might be able to bring this RUP to your home is also to reinforce to students and your children that maybe they should be using their device in a public space and maybe not going to their bedroom and closing the door. That way you're available to maybe see some of the content, or if something makes them uncomfortable, they can begin that conversation with you. Also, if your child is signed on to their Chrome at home, they will also have the same safe search and safety parameters for use at home as well. So do know that as they are logged into their Chrome, these same safe search parameters apply at home as well.
So these are just some tips that you can use at home to help keep your children safe. In talking about conversations, here's Kelsey and Jamie to talk about having conversations with your children at home. Take it away, Jamie and Kelsey.
So we want to thank Tech for inviting us here today. We're your school counselors. My name's Ms. Hanlon, and I'm the school counselor for grades 3 through 5.
And I'm Kelsey Kidd. I'm pre-K through grade 2.
We just want to talk a little bit about well-being in tech and communication with your students around tech. So first we'll start with the mindfulness. I don't know if you're on your phone as soon as you wake up, or maybe on your iPad reading in bed before you go to bed at night. But we know our kids need to manage their impulses as well. And so we really try to coach into that here at school about being balanced and being aware of how much time that you're spending on technology, because we know this is a huge part of keeping your well-being healthy.
Okay, so we've got 5 tips for how to talk to your children if they do find something online that makes them feel uncomfortable. And first tip is to encourage open communication. Talking with your child openly and regularly is the best way to help them stay safe online. Talk about what they can do if they do find something that makes them feel scared or uncomfortable or confused. You want them to be aware ahead of time that you're there for them and that they can come to you.
Also, another important tip is to find teachable moments. So a lot of the units of inquiry touch on body image, violence, healthy relationships, substance abuse. We've even done puberty in 4th and 5th grade recently through some of our units of inquiry. I think it's important to find out times though where you can weave in natural conversations and use the open communication that Kelsey just talked about, so it's kind of organic. And be prepared to answer those really curious questions that come up.
So when those questions do come up, it's important to remain neutral and reassuring. If you seem upset, the kids might think it's their fault. So you could say something instead like, "This is a tough topic, but I'm glad you asked me about it." Or, "It's always okay to tell me something, even if you think it's something bad." For example, if a kid's playing on your phone or tablet and a news alert comes up that says something about sexual harassment, and your kid's like, "What's sexual harassment?" You don't want to take it from him and say, "You shouldn't be reading my notifications," because that teaches them that they can't use they'll get their device taken away from them, and they still won't have that question answered. They feel like they're in trouble. They might go seek that information from somewhere else.
Another tip that we have for you is to ask open-ended and non-judgmental questions, which can be hard if some tricky questions come up. So just a few examples. Where did you learn that phrase? Where else did you hear that? What do you think it is? Why do you think that? And how did it make you feel to hear that?
Another tip is to be truthful in a language that they understand. So you only need to give enough information to satisfy their curiosity. You might not be ready to give them the whole speech about birds and the bees, and that's okay. Just use terms that they'll understand. For example, kid language like bully, private parts, making babies, whatever you think they're ready for. For example, with the sexual harassment, you could say sexual harassment is when someone talks about someone's private parts or touches their body without permission.
Another tip we want to touch base on is explaining why things might be in the media. So going back to some of the great open communication tips Kelsey talked about, staying neutral and reassuring, especially when things pop up on social media that maybe your kids are being exposed to, like the sexual harassment topics, or maybe e-cigarettes or things happening in the news in the world. I know we have a lot of things happening that feel heavy from some of our home countries. Just really being neutral and reassuring and explaining why it's in the media and maybe why a certain viewpoint is being highlighted for whatever reason.
Last tip is to help them protect themselves and others. You can find teachable moments. Instead of taking their tech and panicking, stop and think, wait, could this be a time to teach a lesson? For example, with the sexual harassment, you could say, if someone says something about your body or touches you, or if you see someone bullying someone else, you should tell them to stop and tell an adult in charge. So it becomes a moment that they could learn from instead.
Okay, so now is the review. Our top 5 tips were to remain neutral and reassuring, ask open-ended, non-judgmental questions, be truthful using language they will understand, explain why it's in the media, and help them protect themselves and others.
All right, we're going to turn it over to Tech to talk about an awesome online resource for you guys if you have any other questions about talking to your kids about tech well-being.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Kelsey. That was great. Yes, Common Sense Media. Take it away, Catherine.
So this is another thing that we want to share with you. It's an amazing bank of resources on a variety of platforms, from movies to books to games to social media. It has a wide range of resources for children and parents. And most importantly for parents. And what they offer to you is a rating system. And they have ranked websites and other things for privacy and for child protection and for content. So if something new pops up, like, hey, TikTok wasn't around 3 or 4 years ago, and now it is. And if you want to learn more about those platforms, Common Sense Media is a great place to go for vetted and reliable content.
Not sure what Among Us is, or even Fortnite? That's all right, because Common Sense Media has your back. Just go to the parental guide and look through what is Fortnite, what is Among Us, and maybe you'll get a better sense of what it is and if it's suitable for your child. So that's all for now. Thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully you'll have a safe summer or safe break, whatever time of year it is. We'll see you when you get back.
Bye.